The sound of rain hitting the zinc roof filled the silence in the Okafor household. The air felt heavy, like it carried the weight of things left unsaid. Welcome to Echoes from the Baobab Tree, where the timeless spirit of Africa comes alive through the power of storytelling. This is a story of pretense, I love you, you love me of a thing. Like, you are usually say to your crush, my moon or heart forever. Jokingly, shall you be the creator God? Kindly subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Let's continue. Amarachi sat by the window, her head resting against the cool glass, watching the water flow down the streets of Soralia. It was almost evening, but her husband, Aizu, was still not home. Again. For the past few months, Amarachi had felt her marriage slipping away like water through her fingers. Aizu had changed. He no longer laughed at her jokes or touched her the way he used to. His warm smiles had turned to blank stares. Every dinner was eaten in silence, every night spent back-to-back in bed. She had tried everything, cooking his favorite egusi soup, dressing the way he liked, even planning little surprises. But nothing seemed to bring back the man she married. That night, when Aizu finally walked in, drenched from the rain and exhausted from work, Amarachi forced a smile. You didn't even call to say you'll be late, she said softly. I'm tired, Amarachi. Can we not do this tonight? Aizu replied, his voice low, his eyes avoiding hers. He dropped his bag and went straight to the bedroom. The silence that followed felt like thunder. The next morning, Amarachi sat on the edge of their bed, staring at a small mirror. Her reflection looked tired, her eyes swollen from crying. She whispered to herself, maybe if there's something big, something to make him notice me again. As she cleaned their room, her eyes landed on a pregnancy test kit lying forgotten in the drawer. Her friend Ifeoma had left it behind weeks ago. Amarachi picked it up slowly, her heart racing. Then, like a spark in her mind, an idea formed, crazy, desperate, but maybe her only hope. She remembered how happy Aizu had been years ago when they talked about having a baby. Maybe if he thought she was pregnant again, that smile would return. She hesitated. What if he finds out? Then she shook her head. He won't. I'll make sure he doesn't. That afternoon, when Aizu left for work, Amarachi locked the bedroom door. She opened the pregnancy test kit, stared at the strip, and sighed. Her hands trembled as she took out her pink eyeshadow palette. Carefully, she used a thin brush to draw a faint second line beside the real one. When she looked at the strip again, it showed two pink lines, positive. Her heart pounded. She smiled weakly. Now he'll see me again. She rehearsed in front of the mirror, placing her hand gently over her stomach. Aizu, we are going to have a baby. Tears filled her eyes, a mix of guilt and longing. When Aizu came home that night, Amarachi waited at the dining table, wearing her brightest smile in months. She served his food, and as he sat down, she took a deep breath. Aizu, she said softly, there's something I need to tell you. He looked up, distracted. What is it? I'm pregnant. The spoon fell from his hand. For a brief moment, his face lit up, surprise, joy, confusion all mixed together. But then, just as quickly, a flicker of doubt crossed his eyes. Pregnant, he asked slowly. How? We haven't exactly been. He stopped himself. Amarachi looked down quickly, pretending to blush. Yes, she whispered. I found out this morning. I wanted to tell you in person. Aizu stared at her for a long time. Then, forcing a smile, he stood up, hugged her, and said, That's wonderful news. But behind that smile was a question burning in his mind. How can she be pregnant, when we haven't touched in weeks? As Amarachi hugged him tightly, her heart raced with forced joy. She didn't see the cold, distant look in his eyes, the look of a man who already suspected something wasn't right. And that was how the lie began. The morning sun crept through the curtains of the Okafor home, filling the room with a warm glow that didn't match the tension between Amarachi and Aizu. Though the air smelled of fried plantain and eggs, the atmosphere was thick with unspoken words. Amarachi hummed softly as she set the table, pretending everything was perfect. She kept glancing at Aizu, who sat quietly scrolling through his phone. He barely looked up, his mind somewhere else entirely. Aizu's mind was in turmoil. He wanted to believe Amarachi's news. A baby. It should have been the happiest news of their lives. But the math wasn't adding up. He thought back to the past few weeks, long nights spent on the couch, silent dinners, cold greetings. They hadn't even shared a bed properly in over a month. Yet here she was, suddenly pregnant. He watched Amarachi closely as she served him breakfast. Her eyes darted nervously, her smile a little too wide. "So, have you gone to the hospital yet?" he asked casually. Not yet," Amarachi replied quickly. "I want us to go together." Aizu nodded slowly. "Together," he repeated in his mind. Interesting. That was the moment he decided he wouldn't confront her, not yet. He wanted to know how far she'd go with this lie. Later that afternoon, when Amarachi left for the market, Aizu opened the bathroom cabinet. He found the pregnancy test kit sitting neatly in the drawer, still inside its packet. He turned it over and saw faint pink traces near the result line, almost smudged, like makeup. He frowned. He wasn't sure, but his gut told him something was wrong. So he took out his phone and snapped a picture. He called his old friend, Dr. Chinedu, a laboratory specialist. "Doc, can I send you a photo? I just need you to tell me if this test looks real or tampered with." "Sure, send it," came the voice on the other end. Minutes later, Chinedu called back, chuckling. "Aizu, who are you trying to fool? This thing is fake, my guy. That second line. That's makeup. Probably eyeshadow or lipstick." Aizu's jaw clenched. "Are you sure?" 100%. Whoever did this must have watched too many TikToks. Aizu ended the call, his heart heavy. He leaned back against the wall, staring blankly at the ceiling. His hands shook slightly, not from anger, but disbelief. "She lied to me," he muttered. "She really lied to me." That evening, Aizu returned home earlier than usual. Amarachi ran to him, smiling, wiping sweat from her forehead. "You're back early. I made jollof rice and grilled chicken for you." Aizu smiled faintly and kissed her forehead. "You're glowing, my love. Pregnancy suits you." Amarachi blushed, her heart swelling with relief. Maybe her plan was working. Maybe the old Aizu was coming back. But inside, Aizu's mind was cold and calculating. He was done being silent. If she wanted to act, he'd act better. Over the next few days, he began showering her with affection. He brought her breakfast in bed, rubbed her feet at night, even called her my queen again. Amarachi was overjoyed. She told her friend Ifeoma that her husband had finally changed. "He's back to the man I fell in love with," she said happily. "The baby saved our marriage." But deep inside, Aizu watched her every move, waiting for the moment the mask would slip. One Saturday morning, Amarachi sat in their small living room, rubbing her flat stomach. Aizu walked in, holding a soft baby onesie he had just bought. "Look," he said with a fake smile, "for our little one." Her face lit up. "It's beautiful." He nodded. "Tomorrow, we'll go for a scan. I want to see our baby's heartbeat." Amarachi froze. "Oh, scan. So soon?" "Yes, love. You said you were almost 2 months along, right?" She forced a laugh. "Oh, yes. 2 months. Maybe we can wait another week and... You know I don't like hospitals." Aizu stepped closer, still smiling but his eyes sharp. "You're right. We'll wait." You should rest. After all, you need your strength for the baby. He kissed her forehead and walked away, leaving Amarachi trembling inside. As he closed the bedroom door behind him, Aizu's smile vanished. He opened his phone and typed a note to himself. Keep pretending. She'll expose herself soon. And with that, the game truly began. The rain poured heavily over Lagos that night, turning the streets of Suralere into rivers of silver. Inside the Okafor home, the atmosphere was strangely calm. Amarachi sat on the couch, folding baby clothes that didn't belong to any real baby. She hummed quietly to herself, trying to silence the storm within her mind. But even the sound of thunder couldn't drown out her guilt. For days, Aizu had been nothing but kind. Too kind. He smiled too easily, agreed too quickly, and treated her like a fragile treasure. It was the love she had begged for, and yet, something about it felt wrong. Aizu returned home that evening, drenched from the rain but with a smile that glowed brighter than his wet shirt. My queen, he greeted warmly, placing a bag on the table. Look what I got you. Amarachi's eyes lit up. Another gift. You're spoiling me. He handed her a small envelope. Inside were 2 first-class tickets to Dubai. Dubai, she gasped. Aizu, are you serious? He grinned. We need a baby moon before the baby comes, don't you think? She froze for a split second. The word baby echoed in her ears like a warning bell. Yes, of course, she stammered, smiling through her panic. But Aizu noticed it. The way her smile didn't reach her eyes. The way her hand trembled slightly as she clutched the envelope. Inside, he smirked to himself. Good, he thought. Let's see how long she can keep this lie alive. The next morning, Aizu sat in his car outside the hospital. He wasn't there for an appointment, he was there for confirmation. Dr. Chinedu, his old friend, stepped out of the hospital gate and climbed into the passenger seat. Guy, this your matter serious? Oh. You sure you want to keep playing along? Aizu sighed deeply. She lied to me, Chinedu. I just want to know why. The doctor shook his head. I tested that strip myself. No trace of HCG hormone at all. The only thing I found was synthetic pigment, the kind you find in women's makeup. Aizu clenched the steering wheel, veins rising in his arm. So it's true. She faked everything. Yes, my brother. But be careful. People lie out of pain too, not just wickedness. Aizu's expression softened for a brief moment. Pain, he repeated quietly. What pain makes a woman lie about a child? Maybe the pain of being unseen, Chinedu replied, stepping out of the car. Those words lingered in Aizu's mind like smoke. As he drove home through the flooded roads of Lagos, he couldn't stop thinking about them. Over the next week, Aizu's kindness intensified. He cooked for Amarachi, sang her old love songs, even massaged her feet every night. To any outsider, he looked like the perfect husband. But in truth, every gesture was a blade, a quiet punishment wrapped in love. Amarachi's conscience began to scream louder. She couldn't sleep. She often woke up in the night, staring at Aizu as he slept beside her, wondering if he somehow knew. One night, she whispered into the dark, I only wanted you to love me again. But Aizu's eyes snapped open. He had heard. He didn't move, didn't breathe, just listened. The guilt was cracking her open, and he could feel it. That Friday evening, Amarachi prepared a special dinner, pounded yam, egusi, and grilled fish, hoping to make things right somehow. She wore her finest wrapper and red beads, like the early days of their marriage. When Aizu walked in, she smiled nervously. Sit down, my love. I made your favorite. He looked around the table and then at her. You look beautiful, he said softly. Our baby must be proud of you. She flinched. The word baby again. They ate in silence for a few minutes until Aizu suddenly asked, "By the way, how's the baby doing? You've not been to the hospital yet." Amarachi's spoon froze midair. "Oh, fine. I feel fine. No need to go yet." "Really?" Aizu interrupted sharply, his tone colder now. "Because I called Dr. Chinedu today. He said no record of your visit exists." The spoon fell from her hand, clattering against the plate. "Aizu," she whispered, her voice trembling. "You called?" "Yes, I called," he snapped, standing up. "Because I wanted to hear from a doctor, not from a liar." Tears filled her eyes instantly. "I can explain." "No," he said bitterly, slamming his hand on the table. "You lied about carrying my child. You thought I wouldn't find out." She stood too, sobbing. "I only did it because you stopped loving me. You treat me like a stranger in my own home." The thunder outside roared as both stood there, hearts burning with anger and pain. Aizu's chest heaved. "You wanted my attention, Amarachi. Now you have it." He grabbed his car keys and stormed out, the door slamming behind him. Amarachi fell to her knees, crying into her hands, as the storm outside mirrored the chaos within her heart. The rain had stopped, but the silence that followed was heavier than thunder. The Okafor house, once filled with laughter and soft gospel music, now echoed only with emptiness. Amarachi sat on the living room floor, still wearing the wrapper from the night before. Her eyes were swollen, her heart hollow. She hadn't eaten, hadn't slept. Every sound made her flinch, every car that passed by made her hope it was Aizu returning home. But it never was. 3 days had passed. And in those 3 days, Aizu had vanished completely. No calls. No messages. Nothing. By the 4th day, Amarachi dragged herself to her mother-in-law's house in Ikeja. The air smelled of fried plantain and old wood, a scent that used to comfort her. But now, she was trembling as she knocked. Mama Aizu opened the door slowly, her face lined with wisdom and quiet strength. "Amarachi," she asked softly. "My daughter, what happened to you?" Tears welled up immediately. "Mama. Aizu left me." Mama frowned, motioning her inside. "Left you? Why? What did you do?" Amarachi fell to her knees, weeping. "I lied, Mama. I told him I was pregnant when I wasn't." The older woman gasped, stepping back slightly. "You what?" "I just wanted him to love me again," Amarachi sobbed. "He was so distant. I was so lonely." Mama Aizu stood still, her eyes filled with both shock and pity. "My daughter, love built on lies can never stand. But neither can a home built on silence." She helped Amarachi up gently. "You will stay here tonight. Tomorrow, we will find Aizu. It's time this family speaks truth again." Meanwhile, Aizu sat alone at a bar near Victoria Island, nursing a glass of palm wine. His shirt was unbuttoned, his eyes red with exhaustion. Dr. Chinedu walked in, spotting him easily. "Still here?" he asked, sitting down. Aizu sighed. "She lied, Chinedu. She looked me in the eyes and lied." His friend leaned forward. "And what did you do?" "I exposed her," Aizu said flatly. "I walked out and left her crying." Chinedu exhaled deeply. And now?" "I feel nothing," Aizu said, though his voice cracked slightly. "That's a lie," Chinedu replied calmly. "You feel everything. You just don't want to admit it." Aizu looked away, his jaw tightening. "Listen, my friend," Chinedu continued. "She lied out of fear. But you punished her out of pride. If both of you keep fighting to be right, you'll lose the very thing you're fighting for, love." Aizu's head dropped into his hands. "I don't even know if there's anything left to save." "There is," Chinedu said, standing. "As long as you still care enough to hurt, there's something to rebuild. The next morning, Mama Aizu showed up at her son's office. When Aizu looked up and saw her, guilt hit him like a wave. "Mama, what are you doing here?" "I came to remind you who you are," she said firmly. "A man of peace, not pride." He leaned back in his chair, avoiding her eyes. "Mama, you don't understand. She lied to me. She played with something sacred." "I understand perfectly," Mama replied. "And you, my son, played with her heart. You withdrew your love and expected her not to break." Her words struck deep. She continued, softer now. "Love is not a court case, Aizu. Nobody wins when both hearts are bleeding. You are both wrong, but you are also both in pain. So tell me, do you want to be right, or do you want to be healed?" Aizu closed his eyes, a tear escaping down his cheek. "I just want peace, Mama." "Then go find your wife," she said, touching his hand. "And speak the truth, not as a weapon, but as a bridge." That evening, Aizu drove back to their house. The door was unlocked, the lights dim. Her clothes were gone. Panic gripped him instantly. He called her number, switched off. He called again, still nothing. He sat down in the empty living room, his heart racing. The photo of their wedding still hung on the wall. They looked so happy then, two dreamers full of love and laughter. He clenched his fist. "Where are you, Amarachi?" he whispered into the silence. Then he remembered his mother's words, "If you want to be healed, find her." He stood up, determination rising in his chest. "I'll find her," he said aloud. "No matter how far she's gone." He grabbed his car keys, stepped into the cool Lagos night, and drove off, not knowing that destiny was about to lead him exactly where his heart needed to go. The night breeze swept through the streets of Soralia as Aizu's headlights cut through the dim, misty air. His heart pounded with every turn, his eyes scanning every corner, every roadside shop, every face. Lagos was massive, but his hope was stubborn. He replayed Mama's words over and over in his mind, "You are both wrong, but you are both in pain." He finally stopped at a small food stall by the roadside, where a woman was selling puff-puff and akara. "Auntie, abeg," he asked softly, "have you seen a woman, fair, tall, maybe crying, walking around here in the last few days?" The woman frowned, thinking. "Oh, yes. One fine woman, they come here 2 days ago. She buy only one puff-puff. I ask her if she okay, she just nod and walk her go that side." She pointed toward a quiet street lined with old apartments and flickering streetlights. "Thank you," Aizu whispered, and drove in that direction. He found her sitting on a wooden bench near a small church, her head bowed, her wrapper faded from rain and dust. She looked smaller somehow, fragile. "Amarachi," he called quietly, stepping out of the car. Her head jerked up instantly. When she saw him, she froze, unsure whether to run or cry. "Aizu," she whispered. He took a slow step forward. "I've been looking for you." Her lips trembled. "Why?" "Because I can't live like this," he said, his voice thick. "I can't sleep. I can't breathe knowing I let pride destroy what we built." Amarachi's tears spilled freely now. "I'm sorry, Aizu. I shouldn't have lied. I just wanted you back. I missed you so much, but you pushed me away." He knelt before her, ignoring the muddy ground. "And I pushed because I was lost, too. I thought being silent was strength, but it only made you feel unloved." For the first time in months, their eyes met without anger. Just pain, love, and longing. "Can you forgive me?" she whispered. "I already have," he said, his voice shaking. "Can you forgive me too?" Amarachi nodded slowly, and in that fragile moment, they embraced, broken pieces coming together, trembling but whole. 2 days later, at Mama Aizu's house, the three sat together. The air was peaceful, the walls alive with the smell of jollof rice and hope. I thank God you both came to your senses, Mama said, smiling faintly. Marriage no be for perfect people. It's for those who choose forgiveness every single day. Amarachi lowered her eyes. Mama, I know I failed you. I failed him too. I was foolish. Mama reached out and touched her hand. You made a mistake, my daughter. But every scar has a story, and yours can still end in healing. Aizu squeezed Amarachi's hand gently. We are starting again, Mama. No lies. No silence. That's how it should be, Mama replied, her eyes glistening. Remember, truth is the only language love understands. Weeks passed. The house was no longer heavy with silence. Laughter returned like sunlight after a long rain. Amarachi started painting again, something she hadn't done since before the fights began. Aizu would come home early from work, bringing roasted corn and suya for the two of them to share. They began taking evening walks together through the quiet streets of their neighborhood, holding hands like they used to when they were newly married. One night, as they watched children playing football in the street, Amarachi whispered, I thought we'd never come back from that. Aizu smiled. Sometimes love has to be tested to be proved real. She leaned her head on his shoulder. I'll never lie to you again. And I'll never make you feel alone again, he replied. For the first time in a long time, they both truly meant it. One Sunday morning, Amarachi woke up feeling dizzy. At first, she brushed it off as hunger, but when it continued for days, she decided to visit the clinic. She sat nervously as the nurse ran a test. The minutes crawled by like hours. Then the nurse returned, smiling. Congratulations, madam. You're pregnant. Amarachi's mouth fell open. Pregnant? For real this time? The nurse chuckled. Yes, madam. For real. Tears filled her eyes as she laughed softly. God, you have a strange sense of humor. That evening, when Aizu came home, Amarachi placed a small white envelope on the table. Open it, she said with a trembling smile. He opened it slowly, and froze when he saw the pregnancy test inside. For a moment, silence filled the room. Then he looked up at her, his eyes wide. Is this? She nodded. Yes, Aizu. It's real this time. He dropped the test, scooped her into his arms, and spun her around in joy. The laughter that followed filled the house, echoing through every room, washing away months of pain and tears. But deep down, Amarachi whispered a quiet prayer, let this love stay true this time. No more lies. No more pretending. And for the first time in a long while, her heart truly believed it. The news of Amarachi's real pregnancy spread through the Okafor home like morning light breaking through a storm. For the first time in many months, the air was filled with laughter instead of silence, with gratitude instead of guilt. Aizu couldn't stop smiling. Every chance he got, he touched her belly, even though there was barely a bump yet. Our miracle, he called it. Amarachi would laugh shyly, still in disbelief that life had given them this second chance, both in love and in family. But fate, as always, had one last lesson to teach. 2 months later, the couple stood hand in hand at their church in Suralia. The pastor prayed over them as the congregation clapped, blessing their renewed marriage. Amarachi looked radiant in a soft yellow gown, her belly beginning to show. Aizu wore a crisp white kaftan, his face glowing with peace. As they exchanged smiles during the benediction, Amarachi whispered, we made it. He squeezed her hand gently. By grace, we did. They returned home to find Mama Aizu waiting with a pot of pepper soup. For my grandchildren, she teased. Because one child will not do. Everyone laughed. It felt good to laugh again. For once, there was no pretending, only peace, faith, and love. A few weeks later, Aizu was invited to speak on a relationship radio show about honesty in marriage. Sitting before the microphone, he smiled as the host asked, Mr. Aizu Okafor, How did you rebuild trust after betrayal? He paused for a moment, looking thoughtful. You see, he said softly, forgiveness doesn't erase the past, it just gives it new meaning. My wife and I broke each other's hearts because we stopped listening. But the moment we decided to start listening again, healing began. The host nodded. And what would you say to couples struggling with lies or pride? Aizu smiled faintly. Don't try to win arguments, try to win each other's hearts again. When the interview ended, Amarachi was waiting for him outside the station. She slipped her hand into his and whispered, "You spoke beautifully." He grinned. "I spoke the truth." 9 months passed like a dream. The Okafor home buzzed with anticipation, baby clothes folded neatly, soft music playing in the evenings. Amarachi's paintings now hung proudly on the walls, a reminder of color and life restored. Then one night in late March, the contractions began. Aizu rushed her to the hospital, heart pounding faster than the car engine. The rain had started again, the same kind of rain that had once marked their darkest night. But this time, it felt like cleansing rain. Hours later, the cry of a newborn filled the ward. "It's a girl," the nurse announced joyfully. Amarachi wept softly as they placed the baby in her arms. "She's perfect," she whispered. "So beautiful." Aizu leaned over, eyes glistening. "Welcome home, little Truth," he said tenderly. "You are the proof that love always finds its way back." Weeks later, Amarachi sat in their small garden, baby Edeora asleep in her arms. Mama Aizu joined her quietly, watching the child's tiny fingers curl around her mother's. "My daughter," Mama said softly, "God truly does work in mysterious ways. The same thing that once broke you two has become what binds you." Amarachi smiled, tears in her eyes. "Yes, Mama. I lied once to save love, but truth is what truly saved it." Just then, Aizu stepped outside, holding 2 cups of zobo. He sat beside them, wrapping his arm around his wife and child. "To Truth," he said, raising his cup. Amarachi raised hers too. "And to second chances." As the evening sun dipped behind the rooftops of Lagos, their laughter echoed into the golden light, a song of forgiveness, growth, and grace. And somewhere deep within Amarachi's heart, she whispered to herself, love is not about being perfect. It's about being honest enough to start again. If you want more content like this one, kindly like and subscribe.